As we close in on the one-year mark of the COVID-19 pandemic's impact on JUMC, I have spent quite a bit of time reflecting on this past year and found myself returning to three words: loss, longing, and hope. Think about where you were this time last year as the pandemic began. Maybe you were packing up your belongings on campus or from your office. Maybe you were wondering what online school or life would look like. Maybe you felt alone, afraid, worried about what the future might hold. We have all lost something, many things in this past year, the least of which was worship, fellowship, and our study together. Now, what felt to you like a sudden shutdown of the church and church life was for us a slow and uncertain process. Now, for us as a staff who would love to cram into an office to hear the latest stories from one another's lives, or who had spent so many years huddling in the main office for our Wednesday lunch salad bar, or who would pile into a vehicle to run errands together, we found our worlds both shrinking and expanding at the same time. As the news changed and fewer people were on campus, our world became quite small as Tammy slowly began to turn the heat off and close off parts of the building. Only necessary lights were used, keeping us some days in partial darkness. With no volunteers in the office, we depended more on each other. There was an eerie silence without your presence here. Everything felt frozen in time. In the first few days after the doors closed, we would gather in the library, and that room quickly became home, providing comfort as we all crammed around the table, listening to the breaking news and statements from the CDC and our governor. And then the CDC gave instructions to socially distance, the very thing that we needed to feel grounded and connected. Proximity to one another had been taken away. And we slowly started to expand our circle, creating this space between us, our world now expanding as it seemed everything around us was shrinking. When the official stay-at-home order came in, we anticipated what we might need, gathering items to work from home, removing plants from our offices and closing up the building, not knowing when or how we would return. Our first Sunday of some version of online worship together was March 15th, 2020. We didn't know what we were doing, yet we knew we could do it. We knew we had the right people for such a time as this. So in the months ahead, we studied and we learned, we took risk, we challenged our creativity, and we sought to provide old traditions in new ways. We could see and feel the loss that was occurring around us, and we did our best to provide ways of social connection while being physically distant. And we received your patience, your encouragement, and your grace. That gave us courage to make mistakes and do better next time. So in thinking about those first 6 or so months, I return again and again to this word, loss. Whether we knew it or not, we were all grieving. Everyone had suffered a loss of some sort has suffered a loss during this pandemic. Many have lost loved ones. Some have been deprived of the ability to even physically comfort dying relatives. We've all lost our freedom to move about freely. Many have lost their jobs or at least suffered some sort of financial loss. Our students walked out of school losing the promise of what spring would be. Plans were ruined. Graduations, birthdays, and celebrations all changed. We have all lost the innocent ability to interact with other humans, strangers, friends, and family alike, without the fear of becoming infected or the possibility of infecting someone with this potentially deadly virus. And the loss of life from the coronavirus as a whole is a staggering tragedy. It's important as we move out of the crisis of this pandemic and into a new way of living in the world that we remember the mourning process, attending to and then letting go, frees us to move forward. It prepares us to embrace what is to come. A little over what we now know was halfway through our time of pre-recorded worship, we began asking many of you to participate in worship. Oh, and what a joy and honor it was to bear witness as you returned to the sanctuary. If just for a moment a connection was restored and loss started to be replaced with longing. We were longing for the routines that were the background of our lives before the pandemic because they are comforting to us. And in the midst of so much uncertainty, those were the things we could count on. Yet now our longing presents itself in a new way. When this is over, I'm going to fill in the blank. It seems to help, if only for a moment, for us to imagine all of the vacations that we will go on, the concerts that we will attend, the hugs that we will give, and the activities that we can do once we return to in-person worship as soon as we're able. The collective sense of closure that we're all longing for may never arrive, but instead we brace for a slow fade into a new normal, shifting our longing into hope that these things that we do long for will actually come to pass. It seems fitting that our last pre-recorded service comes on the same Sunday as our first pre-recorded service. Don't worry, we'll still live stream our in-person services moving forward for any who are unable to join us in person each week. And this week, as I edited each of the elements of worship, I found myself thinking back to that first service I edited and how far we have come in 52 weeks. I am filled with gratitude that in this last year of the pandemic, we have been able to build a new type of dwelling place, a space that contains our deepest selves, sanctuaries. Sanctuaries in our home, sanctuaries online, sanctuaries with our voices raised in song and prayer. Throughout this last year, I envisioned the lights from your screens shining on your hands all over our community. We have found ways to draw near to each other to create sanctuaries and face our fears, embracing the one that connects us all. This is where hope resides, where hope anchors us in the resurrection of Jesus, that new life can and will be born from loss and longing. Over this last year, we have learned so much about ourselves and about each other. Our pandemic year has brought joy as well as sorrow, love as well as loss. We've created a new sanctuary of song, of hope, and togetherness. Our year of separation has not driven us apart. We have learned that we are always able to draw near to one another, even across the greatest distance. And as we begin to move towards more vaccinations, we are able to draw near to one another in person. And may we find new ways to bring the sanctuary with us. May we journey through the rest of this Lenten season with a sense of renewed hope that new life is indeed ahead.